Hey guys, welcome to another episode of NetSec Now. So today, what I want to go over is setting up DVWA, otherwise known as Damn Vulnerable Web App. And the good thing about that is it gives you a lab on your local computer without having to set up, virtual machines and things like that, to be able to work on web penetration testing. And so the next few videos we're going to do here are going to discuss some of the topics of web penetration testing using DVWA. So moving forward, installing DVWA, Damn Vulnerable Web App, things you're going to need: Kali Linux 1.0 or 1.x to 2.0, which is what we're running here, is the newest Kali Linux 2.0, but any Unix Linux operating system will do. So the next thing you're going to need there is the actual software itself, and then of course you can go to this link here in the slide. I will also have a link down in the description as well. You also need Apache Web Server, which in our case is actually pre-installed with Kali Linux. MySQL server, same thing, that's your database backend server. A web browser, obviously every operating system pretty much has a web browser of some type, and then your favorite text editor. And of course, guys, if you've been following along, you know that mine is Vim, or VI for short. Let's go ahead and get out of our presentation here, and we'll minimize that. Okay, so the very first thing you're going to need to do, obviously, besides having Kali Linux, which hopefully you're on right now and is why you're watching these videos, is you're going to need to go out to the link, and again it'll be down in the description. It's dvwa.co.uk. Scroll down to the bottom here and click on the download link. And of course it's going to open up a download. You can open it with the unzip program that's in your operating system, or you could save the file. Now again, of course, I always save my files and I do everything the long way because I like to see what I'm actually doing on my operating system. And that's a good way to approach a security standpoint, is slow and steady, so you're not creating a kind of chaos for yourself that's unneeded. So I've already went ahead and taken the liberty to download that. And what I would suggest you do now at this point, if you didn't use the GUI unzip program, is to go to your downloads directory or wherever you may have saved it in your machine on your terminal. So of course I'm just going to ls, and you can see here that I have DVWA zip. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with unzipping things in a terminal, but I'm going to show you how it's real easy. The command simply is unzip, and then whatever zip folder you're gonna decompress here, and just hit enter. And of course, if we ls, you'll see that we have the DVWA, which is now a directory. Okay, so the very next thing we're going to need to do before we get any further is start some necessary services. Now, if you guys have looked, you'll see that I am not root on this machine. Now I'm trying to approach this from a different point of view. I'm trying to approach this as if you guys were operating in your own environments, and so I've added myself to the sudoers root group, which allows me to issue most commands and start services and updates and things like that as if I were root, but having the security of just being a regular account, not a super user root account. Okay, so very simply, what we're going to wind up doing now is the sudo command. Now of course you can omit this if you are running as root, which I may make some mistakes here not typing sudo because I forget. I'm used to operating as root as we have in all of our other videos, but again I'm trying a different approach. So sudo, and the web server software that we're going to be using here is Apache, and like I said earlier, it's already installed on Kali Linux, but Kali Linux does not start back-end services that are not needed, such as Apache, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and things like that for security purposes. So keep in mind that every time you start these services after you're done pen testing or using whatever applications rely on them, it's a good practice to shut them down. So we're going to start up the Apache web server, so it's sudo service because we want to start a service. The service that we're going to start is Apache 2, and I use autocomplete if I can, and then we're just going to say start. And I have to enter in my sudoers password to authenticate. And there we are. Okay, so if you actually went ahead and did sudo service apache status, you can see whether or not it's running, and of course it says active running right here. So that's pretty good. So let's just go ahead and clear out the screen. Now, most services that you can start via the command line here, you can issue that status command to see if they are in fact up and running, things like that. So moving forward, if we went back here to what we needed, we've downloaded the DVWA, we've unzipped it. We started our Apache web server. Now we're going to go ahead and start the MySQL server. Now here's the thing, guys, when you went ahead and downloaded Kali Linux 2.0, if you did it from scratch or whether you were upgrading, at some point you should have been asked to set a root MySQL password. And the reason for that, number one, from a security standpoint, is always good to have a password on all of your services, especially database services like MySQL. But DVWA requires you to be able to connect to a database and set up its database, so you need the root password. Okay, so it's important to have remembered that. If you did not remember that, or if you just hit enter and bypassed it or whatever, you have to set one, and or if you forgot it, you'd have to reset it, which there's some information out there on Google. I might actually just do a video to, put another video out there for you guys to view on MySQL password resets. That being said, assuming you have all that done, let's move forward, and it's the same idea: sudo and then service MySQL start. Oops. And then of course we're going to issue the status command just because, and here we are, MySQL service is active and running, and it tells you since 11 minutes ago. Actually, it was messing around, so I had this thing running for a few minutes, MySQL. Alright, let's go ahead and clear out the screen here. So looking at our list, the very next thing we're going to need is a web browser, of course. But before we jump ahead to that, we need to do some moving around. So default, at least on Kali Linux 2.0, the operating directory or the server root directory for your web pages in Apache is /var/www, and in this case it's /var/www/html, and I'm going to show you quickly what that looks like. So we did an ls var www. You'd see there's an HTML directory there, and then just to take that a step forward, if we did HTML, we'd see that there's an index, which is obviously the default document type to go to a web page. So now if you want to test that Apache is actually working and serving up web pages, very simply open up a web browser here and just go and type in localhost, and you can see this is the default Debian based Apache 2 page for that package, and that just tells us that Apache's working, and of course it gives you some config options, and feel free to read this at any time, but it's basically what we just went over. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Okay, so again, like I said, we have to do some moving of files. If you remember just a few minutes ago here, we actually unzipped DVWA, and now we need to move that whole directory structure over to /var/www/html to serve it up to the world, or us, if you will, when we go to the web page. So, that being said, there's also, this is all capitals, it's got a dash, and it's got some decimal points and numbers. It's kind of hard to remember when you're trying to type that into the browser, right? So what we're going to do is move it and rename it at the same time. So mv is the move command. If you're not familiar with that, you can always do man and then whatever command, and it'll give you the actual manual page for it. So mv, capital DV, autocomplete. I want to move this entire directory structure over to var www HTML DVWA, lowercase, so it's easy to remember, easy to type, right? Go ahead and hit enter. Oops, I have to sudo, like I said, I sometimes forget that. There we go. ls, if I went to, let's see, do that now, you can see there's a DVWA directory. So let's go ahead and fire up your web browser again. Let's just type in, let's go to localhost, and now /DVWA, And you can see right away we're greeted with an error message here. It says unable to connect to the database, MySQL error. Click here to set up the database. So database setup, and it's just telling you what to do. It also tells you that you have to edit this file inside the Dvwa directory to be able to put in your root user and password for the MySQL database. Again, this is why I said earlier that it's important to remember that password. So even if you just said, well, you know, it should be good, I mean, whatever, and you click create, it's going to give you this error message down here, could not connect to the database. Well, obviously it cannot connect because it has no user credentials to connect and either modify, pull down, create databases and tables and things of that nature. So, that being said, this is where your text editor comes in. So I'm just going to go over there and navigate to var WHTML and then DVWA. You can see if I ls in here, there's the config directory that we were being talked about in here, which is right config directory, and then the file name down here. So let's just cd into the config directory, issue ls again, and sure enough, guys, here's the file that we need to edit. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, of course, you can use your favorite text editor, whether it be Nano, you could use a GUI thing like LeafPad or something, or Vim, which is what I'm going to use, VI. I'm just used to VI because I've been using it for eons, it seems like, ever since I started. So that being said, that's what I'm comfortable with. Use what you're comfortable with, and you should be good. Okay, so let's open it up here. You can see there's a bunch of different variables in here, guys. What we're going to focus on is what's called database variables up here. And as you scroll down, you're going to see the variable $_DVWA. And what you can leave the rest of this stuff alone, unless, of course, you're doing an advanced setup and it's on a different server remotely somewhere else, different usernames, passwords. But for our demonstration here, we're just going to leave everything the same, but the only thing we're going to change is the password field here. Now, password, the way it was, that's actually the default for DVWA, but that's not the default for your MySQL server. So mine just so happens to be, and this is temporary, of course, I changed it, but insert. That's sick. Now, oops. And then just save the changes to this file that you edited, guys. You don't need to restart any services after this. Just save the changes and you should be good to go. So now if we went here and just refreshed the page and we clicked create reset database, you're going to see that it actually does some work now. And it says down here, database has been created, users table was created, data inserted, so on and so forth, setup successful. Great news. Okay, so moving forward, anytime if you try to click anything else here, it's going to bring you to a login page. So let's just go ahead and click brute force. Now there's a default login here, and if I remember correctly, it's admin and password. Yes. Okay, so the default username and password is admin password. I know, so very secure, right? But that's the whole point here, is we're learning. So basically, I'm going to show you a couple small configurations in here. And since you guys are just starting out, I recommend that we change the security level on DVWA to low. So this way it's easier to exploit it, to penetrate it, and to figure out how all of this works. Now, again, when we go through this stuff, we're going to be using different various, web vulnerability scanners and fuzzers and all sorts of cool stuff, and we'll run through a tool list of that. So to change the security level, as you can see down here, is set to high. What you do is go to, let's see, where is it here? DVWA security, and then of course you can set this down to low. And then as we progress to being better, we'd set it up to medium. And as we're at like super pro level here, we'd set it to high and try to penetrate it as well. Now, guys, there's all sorts of guides out there on DVWA pen testing, practice examples and labs and so on and so forth. But I mean, really, that's what we're going to actually go through the video series about. We're going to show you start to finish on how to find these vulnerabilities, how to check to see if they're actually there, and then again how to exploit it and then take it from there. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and set this to low for the time being, hit submit, and it should be changed to low now. If you scroll down back at the bottom here, you'll see security level set to low. We do not have a PHP.dist set up on here. Oops. But you could set it up if you wanted to. You could enable it right by here. So maybe we will get to that when we do some advanced IDS evasion techniques or something like that. Who knows how far, if we'll get that far yet, but certainly just to run down the menu here, brute force, obviously you'd use something like Hydra to try to brute force into a login. Command execution. Now, of course, guys, in some of the other videos we went through some of these things like SQL injection and file inclusion and stuff like that, but this time we're really going to dive into it start to finish. We're going to cover it on every level. Command execution, and that's pretty much like not sanitizing the data that the user's entering after the predetermined variable is entered. So for instance, just to give you an idea of what we're going to do here, we're just going to enter an IP address of 192.168.1.1, for instance, okay? And then after that, I'm going to enter an and then I'm going to just do ls arl var www html. Now if you hit submit, you're going to go ahead and see that it did output to the screen, and it sure enough, it was a free pinger script. It did ping the IP address that we put in, so it sanitized the data that we put in, but it didn't trim it, it didn't cut it, it didn't block anything else. So you can see that right after that's completed here, okay, it went ahead and issued our command after the and statement. So of course you can see that it listed the contents of var www html, which of course is what we just did before. So you can see that that's worked. That's just to give you an idea of command execution, poor sanitization. Then you got CSRF, cross-site forgery, request forgeries. You can do token stealing. There's a ton of stuff you can do in here. Insecure captcha. Now the caveat to that is you have to apply for a reCAPTCHA API key from Google, which is not hard to do. Obviously, just go ahead and do that, and it'll tell you how to make that happen there. But we'll get to that, guys, and we'll walk through that step. I'm actually not going to mess with this until we do the next video. File inclusions, which we did have a video on local file inclusions. There's two different types. There's a local file inclusion and there's a remote file inclusion. This one here looks like it's maybe giving you a remote I don't know. We'll go through it. Yeah, okay, so it's remote file inclusion. There's one for SQL injections, and then there's one for blind SQL injections. We've made a couple of videos on that, and I had actually a comment as a question the other day on somebody asking me why their Dvwa installation here for the SQL injection wasn't vulnerable. And either one, it's not going to be vulnerable because the security level, and a lot of people don't set that to low to get familiar with it, or two, he's not simply entering in the actual the real or the right way to check for a SQL injection. So I explained that to him in that comment, and we'll go over that in pretty good detail here, guys. Blind SQL injection. Then we have file upload vulnerabilities, which used to be really huge back in the day with like image sharing sites, like image hosting sites, clip art sites, things like that, where you can upload an image, and we used to trick the encoding to say that it was an image, but realistically it was actually like a C99 shell as a payload or something to root their box. So being said, I don't know if it's very rampant these days anymore, to be honest with you, but it's worth learning about as well. And then you got cross-site scripting attacks. So you got a reflected attack, and then of course a stored attack. Those are pretty cool. I'll show you how to get into all that. And then of course, guys, there's much more to vulnerability testing on the web front end anyway. There's a lot of custom things you can do. There's a whole lot of scripts and tools inside Kali Linux to be able to take it steps further, or at least get more information in some cases. So that pretty much wraps it up. I guess we're going to go ahead and start with a brute force video on the next one. So I'll give you guys some time to get your DVWA lab set up. I'll get you some time to figure out how to get your SQL server started and then your Apache server started. And like I said, guys, whenever you're done messing around, always shut down the services that you manually start. Very, very important, especially if your box has access to the internet, especially if your box is running under root. Very, very big no-no. Okay, so some news from me. I've been shocked by the overwhelming response of you guys, in the comments and via Twitter and the YouTube videos and all that good stuff about my return here back to the project and back to the industry as a whole. You guys are really awesome. I mean, a lot of the comments really made my day, and it made me realize that what I'm doing is actually worth it. People are actually really learning from this. They're grasping it, they're getting it, and they're actually going out into the world to do good things with the information that they take from me. And I really appreciate that. That's really good to know, and I welcome every feedback, whether it be good, bad, indifferent. It doesn't matter, guys. I don't judge. I don't get angry. Let me know how I'm doing as a teacher, and I will improve upon the things that maybe I'm not doing so good at, and I appreciate that. We're approaching 19,000 subscribers right now to the YouTube channel, and quite honestly, I haven't made a video in almost a year and a half, and that's amazing. It blows my mind, and it again just confirms that I'm doing something right, whatever that may be, to make you guys understand and learn, and it seems like it's working really well. So kudos to everybody involved. I really appreciate all that. You guys are really awesome. I had some issues. I tried to make this video earlier in the week. I've had some issues with this laptop that I've pieced together here. My AC adapter, unfortunately, was creating this horrible ground loop feedback into the USB headset, which was annoying to me. Maybe not so much to you guys. I'm sure most of the videos on YouTube for this kind of stuff or any kind of stuff really doesn't even have any voiceover talking, and if it is, it's some Indian guy or something, so it probably doesn't matter. But I like my stuff to be as perfect as possible. So I went out and got a new AC adapter. I narrowed it down to the AC adapter, so hopefully now this video wouldn't have that annoying humming in the background. That also being said, let's see. Anything else new? No, just been dealing with that. I will tell you that Record My Desktop in Kali Linux, especially the GTK GUI front end for it, is a piece of crap. I've had nothing but problems. You know how I make longer videos. I've had nothing but issues. It cut off my voice after 13 or 14, 16 minutes. Some of them were different times, but it just stopped recording the voice for whatever stupid reason. So right now I'm actually using Kazam, which is pretty cool, and then I've downloaded and installed some video editing software. OpenShot Video Editor is pretty cool for basic quick stuff. Kden Live is really where it's going to be at, so it's going to take me some time to produce this video because I'm still learning that as well. But I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, guys. Again, really super appreciate all the positive feedback, neutral, indifferent, whatever. I really appreciate that we have 19,000 subscribers again, guys. I mean, I'm floored by the whole thing. So that's really cool. Stay tuned for the next video. Like, subscribe, and share. Check me out on Twitter as well. I'll have all the links in the descriptions below. And then don't forget to keep checking in on the blog. Alright, guys, I'll see you in the next one. Have fun. Thanks for watching.